Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello, Penny.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you?
Yeah, good. Heading towards Christmas now.
Yeah, and that's a busy time for you, isn't it, in your world?
Very busy. Yes, I'm actually planning some Christmas light switch-ons this year after them all being cancelled last year.
Oh, you've been asked to switch the lights on. Very good.
No, not me personally. Oh no, working with panto stars and people in costumes mostly.
Wow. So that's all in the Kent area.
It is, yeah. Yeah, so a sort of varied bag of just small events this year because we don't want too many crowds with the infection rate still quite high. But
Of course, yeah.
yeah, it's good to be back.
Good. Well, I've been busy too. I'm with my news association, INMAR. I've been leading the charge on this new initiative for the association, which is all about the future of advertising, which is why we sort of talked a little bit about that in our first show, our last show, sorry. And we talked about the future of advertising. And what we said we do as a part 2 this week on a little bit more of an in-depth bit of data and cookies and all the rest of it, because it's a bit of a mystery and it's a bit of a complex area. And I thought what we could do today is really just, I guess, hone in on that in a very straightforward way, because a lot of people really don't understand it. So I thought I'd try and...
changing area as well, isn't it? You know, with Facebook, it's a very changing area. You know, Facebook at the moment being criticised for...
It is, very much so it is. So I thought I'd just try and do it in a very down-to-earth way of like, you know, what's a cookie and, you know, what's it for and why is it going away and why is it of any value to anyone and et cetera, and what we need to do about it, if anything. So what I'll do, I will share my screen and let's go from there. So can you see that?
Yes, indeed. It looks very pretty. Did you draw that yourself?
I did actually, yeah. It was a spare afternoon before I watched my team beat Manchester United comprehensively yesterday. I did this. So yes, so it's all about the future of advertising, as we talked about in the last show. And this is really about part 2 of that, as I say, a deeper dive into analytics. So if you remember in the last show, I talked a little bit about, I related to BuzzFeed and all the stuff you see on the screen there, of all the things they're saying now from the future of advertising point of view, all those things are important to them, whether it's, you know, working with the tech platforms or e-commerce or, you know, restructuring the sales teams or, you know, better experiences, which ultimately is the thing we're all trying to achieve. How do you create a better experience? So today, what we said we do is deeper dive, because all the things you see on the screen there are affected by data. You know, we have to collect data about our customers and about our advertisers and things like this, which allows us to put better experiences in place. But they have serious connotations about what's going to happen with data and all the area around cookies. And this is a very complex area. And I'm going to try and simplify that today if it's at all possible in a very down-to-earth way for anyone who doesn't really get it. And there's a lot of people that don't, and it's very complex. So we'll try and take that complexity out of it and talk in a sort of very straightforward manner. So really, once you've actually got your data, what you need to do then is analyze it. And then from all of that, you'll be able to create some creative ideas about what you should be doing with your data, how you create these better experiences that we've talked about. And you know, the web is constantly evolving, but the changes that are going to come can be very rapid when they start happening in terms of the speed of change, and especially when it comes to things like consumer privacy and data. And it begs the question, you know, what is a cookie?
Love the picture.
So it's not the thing you see on the screen, but a cookie, as far as digital marketing is concerned, is a small text file in the browser that websites can write to, or it could be specific to a device. Sometimes we reference to as a user. And cookies have been around since 1994 with the initial goal of improving the mainly e-commerce experience. So I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit more detail now. There are basically two types of cookies. There's a first-party cookie, and first-party cookies, as I put on the screen there, are created and published and controlled by the website you visit, and help with things like remembering maybe your shopping list or items you've viewed or preferences to improve the user experience when you next come back. So first-party cookies collect behavioral data to help the website owner improve their services to you as a customer, which can be regarded as a good thing. You know, you get a better experience going back, and it knows what you like, and knows what you've behaved, or how your behavior was in the past, and can tap into that. So this type of data collection only relays data back to the owner of the web domain. Okay, so only the person who owns the website gets the first-party cookie. Now the third-party cookie, they're set by a third-party server, which is normally an ad tech company, via a code placed on the web domain by the owner of that domain again, but through a third party. That's an important difference. And the data collected on the third-party cookies are accessible on any website that loads the third-party server's code. So third-party cookies allow advertisers to track users across the internet, cross-site, you know, and they can target advertising wherever that user goes. So that explains why, for example, I'm going to see a band play in a concert next Monday night. And it seems to me, you know, only because I know how it works, and it seems to me sometimes you look at on a website, which is totally unrelated to that, and an ad will pop up telling me that there's this concert appearing next Monday. So it tracks me across the internet, and that's the third-party cookie. So cookies have evolved in a sort of third-party context. Many companies use cookies from websites to track user activity for advertisers to target their ads, as I've just described, really. Now, today, there's many digital marketing capabilities that are powered by cookies. So we use them to track, as you'll see on the screen there, website visitors, improve the user experience. It can create personalized on-site experiences. It can collect data to help target ads to the right audiences. And we also use cookies placed by advertisers to better understand the user when they're not on your website, and that's the part that's going to go away. The advertisers use third-party cookie data to learn about a visitor's overall online behavior. So without third-party cookies, we lose the ability to understand what websites a user frequently visits, what purchases they make, or interest they've shown on other websites. And marketers have got to be prepared for that, you know, attribution, that measurements, the frequency capping and suppression, the insight, the segmentation, activation, all this sort of stuff. They're all acting for a shakeup next year because all the third-party cookies are going to go away. So, you know, privacy first web browsers, things like Firefox and Safari with Apple, they already block third-party cookies. And now Google, with, you know, whereas the world's biggest web browser, Chrome, has announced that that browser will kill the cookies as we know it. And what they say is, this is a quote from them, I'm going to quote, I've got it written down here, and it says, after initial dialogue with the web community, we, that's Google, are confident that with continued iteration and feedback, privacy preserving can sustain a healthy and ad-supported web in a way that will render third-party cookies obsolete. So what they're saying is, we're taking privacy seriously. You know, we need to act responsibly as far as our web's concerned. So there are some people who go, that's really good, but it's going to create a big shakeup because third-party cookies won't exist anymore, and all the stuff that people rely on to this day.
Do you think enough people realize that?
Well, my association, InMarv, did a survey of publishers, and they asked them, what are you doing about third-party cookies and the impact of it going away? And a lot of people are saying that they recognize that it's happening, but have they done anything about it yet? They're like, no, because it's going to be delayed till it was going to be 2021 this year first, and then they've delayed to the end of 2023, which I'll come back to in a minute of why. But they've sort of said, oh, it's not really top of the list yet, and they need to take it seriously now. You need to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard enough.
No.
feedback on that from customers or even tech people. No one's mentioned it to me, so that's why this is really interesting.
So the question is, why are they going away? Cookies power all the ways, as I say, the way we track and target and measure performance in digital advertising. So cookies track users silently, and the ad industry didn't really do a great job of educating users how and why we use cookies as an industry. It didn't give people a way to opt out, importantly. And as a consumer, you have little control over who's collecting the information or where it's going, or you're able to clear the cookies from your browser, but you'll never be able to manage or delete the servers holding the third-party data that's already being gathered. So despite the fact you might go, I don't want to receive any stuff from these people anymore, the third party may have forwarded your details on to a million other people in the meantime, and you can't stop that. And that's one of the reasons why third-party cookies can be, annoying at the minimum and dangerous at the worst end. So in response to this perceived lack of transparency and control for individuals, data breaches, and somewhat creepiness, some would say, in advertising, the way I say it follows me around the web, the informational stuff like, oh God, I didn't know I was going to be on this site and it's giving me an ad for this gig I'm going to next week. So, and also privacy legislation from the EU, GDPR, now gives users control over their data. So effectively, these policies give users the ability to block various tracking technologies or request the deletion of their data. And
so are we still governed by EU?
Those laws we are, yeah. Despite the fact of Brexit, yeah, we still are controlled by GDPR. So the tech companies have also responded by giving users control of how their data is used, both within the browser and devices. And again, Google said recently it will delay the discontinuation of the third-party cookie until the end of next year as a result of mounting industry opposition and feedback it received when testing possible replacements. So they're saying that, we want to get it right first, basically, and therefore we're giving more time for people to get used to it. And it could be exactly as you've just said, but you summed up in a nutshell. You haven't heard enough about it, and that's the thing. They're saying that we're going to give people more time. Whether that's, not everyone believes that. Of course, there's a lot of skepticism towards Google, the likes of Google and the platforms generally, and what's their real motivation. But that's what they say. So, why are they delaying it? They say it would end support for cookies in Chrome by early 2022, next year. Once it's figured out how to address the needs of users and publishers and advertisers and come up with tools to work around. But the latest plan will phase out the support for third-party cookies by the beginning by mid-2023, with cookies completely gone by the end of that year. So while that delay gives advertisers more time to test cookie replacements ahead of this, getting rid of it, it also leaves the industry in limbo as replacements and the next steps remain largely uncertain. The industry is rudderless in many ways in that regards, and to move web standards forward, we need consensus across the board where everyone's happy with it. But something important to note is that although third-party cookies might be going away, third-party data isn't. So businesses will have to find ways to access information that they would have had previously through getting it themselves, still through things like membership schemes or loyalty programs and email subscribers and social media insights, all that sort of stuff they can do, which is going into the first party data stuff, the stuff that you as a publisher or a website or whatever can control and get information to yourself. So in essence, the next steps in this sort of cookieless world, if you like, is, make no mistake, cookies are an important tool for advertisers to track and to gather data that's critical to informing user behavior and targeting, people across the web. So reducing the advertiser's ability to track and understand user behavior will no doubt affect the efficiency of targeting practices. So you remember the fallout we had from this Cambridge Analytica data controversy, all this Facebook stuff, and to the wide way, reaching data consent and controls of GDPR. We're now in the midst of an industry, worldwide almost, where there's a crackdown on third-party data practices that were once taken for granted by advertisers. So the good news for consumers is that, it's good for consumers because they control the data, and also for companies who recognize the need for privacy and trust, for companies to really explain what's happening on their sites. And that's it'll impact advertising, and all the sort of ad tech players may have smaller pools of data now, and therefore the cost per thousands and what you can charge for quality data will likely to rise, because it becomes more important to what you've actually got. And many advertisers will feel a more sophisticated approach to making ads more relevant, instead of just chasing down what they think is the right target, is the way to go. So it's one of the reasons, as I put the bottom there, why advertisers need to place more emphasis on creative performance to create relevant and highly quality, great experiences, which are tailored to the user. And that's what it comes down to. It is an opportunity. We should see all this as an opportunity to engage with our customers in an improved way. Creating compelling content, for example, engaging videos across digital platforms to create a solid and trust-based relationship with our users. It'll impact things like Google Analytics, and it'll increase our reliance on first rather than third-party data, and our direct relationship with our customers. And I think that's a good thing ultimately, if once we get used to the idea. And above all, advertisers should remember the first-party data is king. My advice would say to anyone listening to this with SME, start the process of creating a usable ID of customers and prospects with something as basic as an email address and or a phone number as your primary key, if you like, to ensure you can sort of start to continue to market on a one-to-one level across the various products, and then start to work from there. But, the removal of third-party cookies does change the game a bit, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, because by using the first-party data and getting it yourself rather than relying on other things to do so, you can learn about your audience's interests and their preferences and the characteristics and their behaviors directly from them. It's a one-to-one relation you've got with them now. And it can more accurately, therefore, predict their behavior and improve your targeting and your marketing campaigns. And it built a transparency relationship, which I think is really important to this day as well. It's all about transparency now about going forward, I think, and
more honest relationship, isn't it? And we're all a bit more cautious about being pushed advertising, I think. We're in a download start of our lives now with watching things. I think that's all becoming that way. You find it quite offensive if you've got adverts that just are chasing you.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember is that you can start to recoup some of the revenue you've lost to third parties in previous years, because it's all done through yourself now. So I think it's just a wake-up call. In the publishing world, which we worked in and working still, is just that you need to just wake up and smell the coffee and think things through differently, and start to plan differently how you do things, but you can get a closer relationship. And as we said, I've used this equation on our show previously, that in red there, creativity plus data plus technology equals a better experience. And that sums all up what I've just said perfectly.
It does, doesn't it?
And I just thought I'd show a couple of things I found from a couple of media companies, a couple of big media companies, and what their response to all this is. So we take Bloomberg Media. They say they get data from a first party point of view in 3 different ways. Now they have a modeled data, what they call it, the modeled data, and they collect stuff which is based on implicit and explicit signals, which predict things like the engagements people have with their ads, their preferred content, so they can give them more back of what they want. Then specifically on implicit and explicit, on implicit data, they can look at patterns. So on content consumption, on the way, again, people interact with the ads, what cross-channel engagements they've got, again, with a view to giving them a more personalized experience. And finally, with regard to, in terms of asking people for their data, they start to build a relationship where they can earn and keep trust with their readers, because they start to trust what they're getting back from them. And what they say is, but what we've got to do, and it applies to businesses, again, big and small, you've got to use the opportunity wisely. Audiences now are getting more smart, they're getting cleverer, they're more mindful of why you're asking them for data. And they say that what you've got to do is do three things. You've got to ask the right questions, and bear in mind, when you're starting to ask people, can you give us your age? Like on the right-hand side there, they do this age and what city and what your education level is for a certain thing. But they say, if you ask for that, you better be a good reason why you're asking for it, and maybe a relevance why you're asking, because they will ask, I wonder why they need to know that. So you've got to be clear, and you've got to have a good reason to ask for personal data and tell them why you want it. They say you've got to then create a value, and the customer will again think to themselves, I know you have to ask me that, but is it worth me giving you my information for that? So again, you've got to create this value exchange of, we're going to give you something really good back if you tell us this bit of information. And the third thing they say is, think again about what the reader will think. And that is, I think all news companies use your data on your previous reading. Well, it might be, but share with them what you know about them. We already know that, you already like, apples and bananas, and, so we'd like to give you some stuff which we think are relevant to those apples and bananas, to pick a stupid example, but you know what I'm saying. They've got to know why you're using it and how you're using it. And their words are, stay non-creepy, because it can become creepy if stuff starts to follow you around the internet, as you found with third-party cookies. So keep away from being creepy is what they say. And the other one I just wanted to share was the South China Morning Post, which is a big newspaper group out in Asia, based in Hong Kong and Singapore, basically. And if you look on the left-hand side, they collect 100% of what they collect data is 100% first-party data. And what they can start to do then, by building the relationship with the customer, is to start to build things like not just demographics and behavioral and interest areas, but they can start to get opinions of people, which maybe change the way they market to them. They can start to get their preferences, their intent, what their desire to do something is. But all these different things they can start to layer on. And they do that by taking all those things on the left-hand side there, and they collect all that data by the things in the second column on next to it on the right, through Google Analytics.
Huge amount of data collection.
It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
They do it all through email subscriptions and payments and all the rest of it, and they collate it all into this data warehouse, which they call this South China Morning Post Lighthouse. And what that does, allows them to create relevant and contextual segments for advertisers. They can sell to advertisers, and they can buy an audience who are interested in X, Y, and Z. So it's very clever, and it's very complex, but hopefully that just shows you how you can try and simplify the approach to it, because there's a lot of technology and technology speak talked around all this area. But basically that's what it is. It's about being relevant to your customers, whether advertisers or readers of your website or whatever.
And that's what consumers want now. We're all more time poor and want to just engage with things that make sense to us, don't we?
That's right. And when you ask them, so basic question, why do you build bespoke audiences? Well, for all the reasons you see on the screen. You get better personalizations of ads in terms of the creative and the messaging and the ad type and the platform. It's about, they can define prospective clients better. You can increase your targeting better. You can create a detailed persona on your customer, so you can get to a transparency with them and a trust with them. Better engagement strategies, and again, for post-campaign reporting to show how well it did, you can be more specific and more measurable about what you do, and more explicit about what you do. So that's the real thing. And the other one that was, just to round that whole thing off, do you remember our friend here? And this is it, Gert on our
legend.
He is a legend, and he was on our show, remember, early in the year, and that's him on the show there. And remember, he had this book called Technology versus Humanity and the Relationship between Technology and Human Beings. And basically, one of the things he said was, what can be automated will be. And you need to think about things like, this exponential growth. He was saying there's going to be more change in the next 30 years than there has been in the past 300 years. And Moore's law says that, once you get to exponential growth, as everything gets double every 2 years in terms of rapid pace of change once it starts. So there's a massive change coming in everything. And he says, and he's done this thing where he said that in this age of the Asians, digitization and mobilization and automation, all the rest of it, he's saying ultimately everything's going to be wired, not literally, but wired as in connected, whether it's houses, airports, farms, hospitals, our bodies even will have sensors on each other. You've seen these things with clothing now, with internet connections on your clothing, that's coming, and we'll all have sensors and be able to talk to each other. And his point of saying this is that therefore anything that can be automated will be, and therefore anything that can't be will be more important than ever in the future. So what are those things that can't be automated? And all the things that he uses in this word cloud here. So things like creativity, storytelling, values, ethics, insights, experiences. And these are all the things that we can start to monetize better going forward. And there's loads of examples, and this applies to what we've just been talking about, because first party data, for example, allows for much of that to happen. And end of is that he's saying basically what we need to do is to get those human insights out and work, if you like, beyond technology and data. It's really important that we have that as a base layer, but going forward, we need to go beyond all of that, and all the stuff in that cloud there are the things which actually make that happen. And you can see that being part of a lot of stuff we do today, can't you? The way things have changed now, even down to
totally, yeah, absolutely.
And it's a case of how do we bring those human insights out, things like passions and in this day and age, kindness and serendipity and all that sort of stuff. How do we bring them out? Well, they're the things that will become more valuable in the future. So that was it. So it's as I say, it's a complex thing. It's a complex thing, but hopefully that just explains it a little more clearly for people if they don't really understand what it's all about.
Well, it does come back to relationship marketing, doesn't it? And it doesn't really matter what sector you're in. We're all having to get closer to our consumers because there's more choice, and not just a choice. There's more different ways to buy certain things, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Well, I think I remember rightly, you sent me a link, and which reminded me as well. You sent me a link a while back to Piccadilly Circus billboards in London.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And in fact, if I've got it here, actually, let me just see, which is very much in keeping with what we just said. So if I just share this, there it is. Do you see it?
Yes.
So the point of this article is saying that, you can read it on the screen there. So a new digital billboard in London's Piccadilly Circus uses recognition technology to display targeted advertising based on the make of passing cars and the gender and age of pedestrians, which sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? The screen wraps around the facades of the building, as you know what it looks like, but built-in cameras concealed within the screen can track the make and model and color of a passing car and deliver targeted ads based on, whatever the car it is. In addition, the cameras and algorithms register visual clues, for example, her length and height, to make assumptions on the demographics of the area. For example, if the algorithm detects a higher proportion of women in the area, it could display promotions for women's wear. Now that's just sounds like science fiction. Doesn't it sound like Minority Report or something,
It does. But I mean, it's exactly.
But that's all from data.
That's
all from collection of data.
Yeah. And it's just the technology is allowing that higher level of targeting and engagement with people, because if you see something that is right for you, you are more engaged, aren't you?
Yeah.
And feel more comfortable and more positive about potentially buying. But these are the challenges that a lot of businesses are facing.
As I put it I did no slides there. Bloomberg Media pointed out what you've got to do, and I think there's a fine line with what we've just seen from Piccadilly Circus example, is don't be creepy.
Yeah.
They're very, very easily led down the road of like, oh my God, that's a bit strange. Follow me around this advertising. I don't like this.
Yeah.
You've got to tread that line. And I guess we all work out what that line is over time. But the important thing is data is really crucial, but how we use it is going to change. But we shouldn't be scared by that. We should try and use it as an opportunity.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And it applies whether you're a two-man business or a several thousand strong business.
It certainly
doesn't
does.
matter.
As does a lot of marketing. You know, it's the principles are all the same, aren't they? Customer journey, customer experience.
Yeah.
And your C plus D plus T. I like that. Exactly. Creativity.
So there we go. So that's it for this week, Pam.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you, Mark. So you want to get in touch, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook, or if you want to listen to some previous shows, ukbrandshow.co.uk. And
just to let you know, the next show, we've got a great guest lined up. We have a brand of beer, a specific brand of beer, which you may or may not have heard of, called Toast Ale. Toastl. And they're a small business, a 6-man business, I think it is. And they're doing some amazing things in terms of getting their brand out there and the recognition of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting.
And we're going to hear all about their story. So we've got a special guest coming on the show next week, talking about all of that.
Fantastic.
Great. So I look forward to that.
Me too.
I look forward to seeing you then too.
Yes, indeed. We'll catch up next time.
We will. Take care. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Bye.